Sebastian, pasillas. I'm in capstone. I'm an animal science major at the business option. I'm a senior at Oklahoma State, and my presentation is over bovine respiratory disease, or known as BRD. I'm working at a preconditioning yard in Rosedale, Oklahoma, and we deal with a lot of this on a daily basis. What is BRD? Bovine respiratory disease is an infectious disease that harms the immune system of cattle and can cause some serious health issues with lungs and with the respiratory system in cows. How do cattle get BRD? Stress is a big factor in contracting BRD because we get a lot of cows from the Carolinas, from North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Yugo, Oklahoma sometimes. This is a bacteria, and it breaks down the immune system, and it makes them more susceptible to BRD and affecting the respiratory system. One big factor, or two big factors that can play a really big key in this is climate change and weather change. Much like us, if we go somewhere else that we're not acclimated to, we have a really big problem or a really big issue trying to adjust to it. And then the last one I'd like to say is being around other sick cattle. The main point of this slide is to let people know that stress is a really big factor in contracting BRD and should be taken very seriously, even whenever shipping and receiving and just working with cattle. What part of the cattle industry usually gets BRD? I'd like to say all of them do, but the main issue or the main ones we usually work with, or that we see, are pre-weaned calves, because they do not have a very strong immune system due to the fact that they're just pre-weaned and they're being fed, and that's what our goal is to do, is to put them on feed so they can grow and build an immune system. And cattle who have been taken off a week and not doctored, or they have been doctored but not significantly enough, or been isolated because they're on grass, and cattle who are malnourished and just don't have a good enough diet, that makes them have a poor immune system, and they are more susceptible to getting BRD. Symptoms of BRD are fevers of 104 degrees, they have a difficulty breathing, nasal discharge, and I've seen this quite a bit. It's whenever their nose usually it almost looks like foam. It's like you grab a bottle or a little dish soap, and you can put it like on your hand or on your nose, and it just makes bubbles. That's kind of what it looks like on their nose. They have no appetite, and they have really, really bad breathing, and they almost look like a fish out of water, and they cough a lot. So, how to prevent BRD? We want to reduce stress as much as possible, because if we don't have any stress, then these cattle have a potential for them to grow, and they're more at ease with themselves, and their body can fight off whatever kind of sickness and build more immunity. We want to get them to eat so they can help get their bodies healthier and make them more resistant and be able to fight off this disease. And we can medicate them. And we want to make sure they have a good enough environment. Shade and water are two really big factors in this, and if you don't have either of those, then their health is going to go down pretty quick. And make sure there's very few deaths in the air, because if you have more dirt or dust in the air, it's going to make those lungs go pretty crazy. The BRD medications that we use are antimicrobials, and they help fight this disease off and stop inflammation, and they have a pretty short withdrawal period, because our goal is to turn them around, get them on feed, and just get them back on a feedlot so they can get ready and go to be processed and on the table as soon as possible. The ones we use right now are Draxin. That's what we use to mass treat, and whenever we have to pull, if the Draxin doesn't make them better, then we use Exceed, and then if that doesn't work, then we go to Advocin, but Exceed has like a 72.4% turnover, so that works pretty nice. And then it's made by Zoetis. All three of those products are. Micotil is another one that is also used to fight off BRD, and Baytril. I feel like these three are the best ones, and then it goes on, and then all of these medications are used to fight off this disease, and they're all sub-Qs. If you do anything else, then they're going to struggle pretty bad, and it'll mess up their muscle tissue. These are the medications. That's Draxin, Exceed, Advocin, and that's Micatil, and that's Baytril. Who does the work to stop cattle from getting BRD? We do at pre-conditioned yards, and they do at feed yards as well. They usually have to watch out, and you see whenever you look at them, you want to make sure their eyes are looking at you at the bunk, and make sure their noses aren't wet and they're not coughing all the time. Pre-conditioned yards were set up to help background cattle and make sure that their health goes back up and stop them from dying. And you have about a 40 to 60 day, 60 day on the like really high end, and that's very rare, but 40 is like the minimum, let's say, give or take, so we can get them better. And it also depends on the time of year. Like right now, we don't have very many cattle, and we're just trying to make sure that they get to better health as soon as possible. These are pictures of some lungs. That's what healthy lungs should look like on cattle. That's like the first side effects of BRD is pneumonia. It can lead to other issues. And then this is like really bad BRD. It just completely just ruins their lungs, and they have a really hard time recuperating. After they look like that, they're probably shot, and they're not going to be able to make it. They're going to die. The statistics I have is BRD is the #1 leader of death in feedlots, and whenever we have to background cattle, that's like our main issue that we have. 70 to 80% of feedlot morbidity and 40 to 50% of mortality of these were taken in 2011 by the USDA National Animal Health Monitoring System. The National Animal Health Monitoring System also stated that BRD has increased from 10.3% from 1994 to 14.2% in 1999 and to 60% in 2011. So that's a 5.7% increase in about 27 years or so. Feedlot statistics that we have are from Mike Ellinger. He's the CEO of Cactus Feeders, and he's been covering data for the past 13 years and has noticed that they've lost about 0.05 more cattle due to BRD and not fixing the problem. So that's quite a bit of cattle from Cactus. BRD has also affected carcass weights, and they've noticed that carcasses have been losing 10 to 15% more weight due to their lungs and not being able to grow to full capacity, and their average daily gain has gone down to 0.07 to 0.033%, and they're not able to finish off these cattle on a diet due to this. They don't want to eat because their lungs are just so bad and their health isn't very good. And they've also lost 50 marbling points out of a scale of 100, and that's pretty poor. That's not a very good steak or anything you'd want to have on your plate. In conclusion, BRD is very critical and should be taken very seriously, and should all be taken into consideration that they should have good shade, a good diet, and being able to be inside an environment that's not going to stress them out, and they should be worked every day and should just be able to cooperate like with the environment they're going to be in and be able to grow, because if they don't have a good enough diet or just enough nutrients, and their health is just going to go downhill pretty quick. And I believe that the main key factor that you want to get out of all this is make sure that health is a really big deal. But if you're not going to have health, if you don't have any type of good diet or just anything like that, diet's the main key of this. And so is stress. You want to reduce that as much as possible. In conclusion, eat beef because beef is the best, and these are my sites.